Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin, down here in Tennessee, ready to talk some Packers. We've got several topics to hit tonight, man. There was a lot of Packers news that really came across the wire. It was kind of a fun day, man. This time of the year, Jacob, before the draft, we're about, roughly a month out, a little more. It gets a little dead, and then things ramp up as you get closer to the draft. But it's just pretty cool that the way the news and all the prospect information is kind of trickling in, it's working out perfect to do a podcast. I'll tell you that, man. As we had a top 30 visit today, to the best of my knowledge, we'll cover all that. But how was your day, man? And before we get going here, is there anything on the forefront of your mind you'd like to hit on?
First of all, day was good. Like I was just telling you, we skipped was supposed to be a pretty decent snowstorm, so definitely happy to skip that and keep the kind of the early spring going. I did, see a bunch of different news kind of flashing around today. I was kind of distracted for most of the day, but did you get a chance to listen to our kind of flagship podcast, Mr. Ryan Schlip's podcast this morning?
I didn't get to finish his show actually, maybe I did. I'm trying to think. I listened to a full episode, but I might have been a day behind. What was the topics he hit on today? Because I know I listened to the Cincinnati Bengals one where he broke down the salary cap. That was a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. And then today I'm trying to remember what he covered, but I think I did listen to that podcast today. He
basically, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I've been listening to Ryan, been working with him on and off for years and years, and it's very few and far between. He'll go on rants a lot, but not ever where he gets, to the point where you can tell he's sincerely annoyed. He kind of, here, it looks like Tool for this shot.
I remember now.
It is talking about kind of how people are just, Packer fans specifically, how they'll make these bold claims and have absolutely nothing to back it up. You know what I mean? And right. Certain things like, now we have to do this in this round. We have to pick this position in this pick. We have to do this. Gutey has made it so we can't do anything other than what the, casual fan base wants us to do. And then he's like, all right, I got to take a break. I got to, I'll get and then he came back out of the break and then started on a different topic. And then he's like, all right, I'm going back in it. Like you could tell he was very wired up about the topic. And I completely agree with him. I think we got to stop being so maybe one track minded and realize that the draft is not there to fit a perfect puzzle piece of what we think it should before the draft starts. It's a react and adapt kind of thing where you try to get the best possible player at your position. I just think it was good to highlight that.
Yeah, and listen, there's a couple of different ways you can handle it, and Ryan does have the best rants, and he approaches it much different than me on social media. Like he'll kind of engage back and forth and let people know, yeah, I disagree with that. Me, when I see some of these tweets, I'm just like, man, I ain't doing it. I don't need the brain damage. You can try to prove someone wrong and feel like you did a good job. And in their mind, it's like this guy's still an idiot. He still disagrees. But I loved hearing him talk about how it's just like, what do you want Brian Gutekunst to do? We talked about it. Anybody who watches this show knows going into free agency last year, we were like, damn, dude, let's go get Xavier McKinney. Let's possibly get Bobby Wagner. Let's lock down a couple of these players. Like, hey, these are great veteran. Like, you're overpaying for great, not overpaying for good type people, right? Xavier McKinney was at the top of the list. So we talked about that. Going into free agency this year, Jacob, we were going, don't really like this free agency this year, And if I had to pick two, and that's exactly how I worded it, give me Chris Godwin, wide receiver, right? And then we said Drew Dalman at center wouldn't be a bad pick up there, seeing that Josh Myers is walking. We didn't have Aaron Banks on our radar, but it doesn't mean he's not a good football player. And the fact that you were willing to structure the contract in the way you did, to me, it seems like with the Aaron Banks signing, it's real simple. It's hey, look, you got 2 years to kind of prove it. And oh, by the way, the guaranteed money's up in 2 years, essentially, is what it comes down to. It's, it's very maneuverable in that regard. I think there was $27 million fully guaranteed, right? Which ain't that bad. Essentially what you're saying is, you could probably have it for 3 years, $13 million per, and then get out of the rest if you need to. There's a multiple different ways you can look at it, but it doesn't mean he's a bad player just because he wasn't on everybody's radar. And people that are breaking down the tape, what I noticed, people turn on the tape and they went, "Oh, this dude's pretty damn good. Like, he moves around well. Oh, he only gave up 1 sack." Like, some of the key statistics that truly matter. But yeah, with what Ryan's saying there, basically, and just to paraphrase, guys, or to kind of give you a glimpse into what he said, was, everybody's now saying you got to take a wide receiver in the first round. Well, we got to take a receiver here now. We got to do that. And it's so refreshing hearing Ryan say, well, you take the best player available is what you're doing. Like, and that's what we've always talked about. Like, when we do I loved his rant too, Jacob, on mock drafts. People do mock drafts based off of need, meaning, well, here's our biggest need. We're going to take that in the first round. Here's our next to biggest need. We're going to take that in the second round. Listen, your needs drive your draft. Don't get me wrong. But you have the needs in front of you. Like, okay, here's the slots we want to fill. And then you let the board fall the way it does to get the best players of those needs as you come across those needs. What I mean by that is, like, we could use a future number 1 receiver, right? Like a guy that has the high potential to be a number 1 receiver. If Ted McMillan falls to 23, that's the perfect example of, boy, the stars lined up. Let's go grab his son of a gun, right? Now, let's say that there's a 3-tech there that's solid, and he's the only 3-tech in that current tier of overall talent there. Okay, cool. Then it's 3-tech. Well, guess what? You have a 3-tech need for the future because Kenny most likely will not be on the roster next year, or at least won't be playing under that cap hit, and Kenny isn't the Kenny of old. We know that. You could go a multitude of ways like that, like with Jair and the cornerback. I love what Ryan said about wide receiver. When you go get McCole Hardman, you didn't paint yourself into a corner of, all right, receiver, right? Because the reality is McCole might not even make the roster. That's fact, right? But if he does, you've got a good punt returner, and you've got a guy that can take the top off with his speed. So I don't know. I thought it was a great episode, which he always puts out great work. I just going, Ryan, man, don't let him do this to you. Like, it ain't worth.
Tell he's getting a little peeved.
It will give you brain damage, man.
I think what Too Old for This is saying, I'm never going to stop calling you that, by the way. You're basically the Washington Redskins.
Name back. Yeah.
He said, I love how Ryan asked if we could name the last 7 first-round picks of the Jags, because I'm sure not one person could name the last 5 firsts of any team besides the team that they root for, which I thought was a great point, because we are sitting here looking through a lens, looking through a scope of diehard Packer fans that we literally study this stuff like freaking psychos. But that just means that we have gotten to know these individual players. We've seen the journey they've taken. We've seen the way that it works out or it doesn't. So it's fresh in our minds. It's the only thing we see. All we see are the failures, and we see our glaring successes. But at the same time, if you were to take a step back and look at it from 30,000 feet, there's very few. I mean, other than the Eagles, which have been on like kind of a crazy run lately of just striking some freaking gold, most teams are going to strike out in the draft, because guess what? Most players that get drafted aren't going to be all pro. They're not going to be Pro Bowlers, not going to be Hall of Fame. They're going to have maybe 1 or 2 splash years, and then something's going to happen where their career falls off. It's just the way it works.
No, I completely agree. And listen, Howie Roseman, I don't want to sound, I'm trying to think of the way to describe this. I want to make sure people know exactly how I feel about Brian Gutekunst. I think Gutekunst is a good GM. I don't think Gutekunst is a top 3 GM. That's just me personally. I could be wrong. Howie Roseman and what he did building 2 championship teams, 2 different times, and doing it in a different way of, okay, let's reset, let's do it again. I put him in the upper echelon, right? Is Gutey a top 10 GM? I think so. Yeah. I think the only thing that's lacking with Gutey is we never truly go to, okay, let's take that next step with a few veterans, right? A little veteran leadership on the team. I think we've kind of missed out on that a bit. That doesn't mean he's a bad GM, right? Yeah. And if you go on a run, and what he's looking at is these players that were, the youngest team in the league last year, in their second year, that they take that step that the coaching staff's expecting them to take. And I imagine with exit interviews, they had those conversations. They sat down with Gutey, and LaFleur said, hey, I think this dude's going to be a big part. I bet Hafley said, hey, this dude's going to play a big role next year. And that's how you kind of mold your roster of anticipating these guys are going to take that next step. Otherwise, what you're doing is just a turnstile. You're constantly plugging in 30 to 32-year-olds, and they're going to be gone the next year, gone the next year, gone the next year. And it's just this big turnstile of talent or lack thereof. So again, the message I want to send is I don't think Gutey is perfect. I don't think Gutey is a top 3 GM. I think he's definitely top 10. He may be top 5. That's me personally.
I was going to say top 7. So
yeah, somewhere in that range, right? And here's the thing: if these guys take this next step next year, guess what? He's going to fly right up into the top 5. If the Packers find themselves in the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl this year somehow, some way, then we're going to be going, damn, Gutey's a genius. And those same fans that were complaining all of a sudden will disappear. And it's just like, okay, let's wait until something else goes bad, and now let's bring it back to the forefront. I just want to say it's okay to disagree with him. You don't have to agree with every move the GM makes. But there is, when he was describing how people reacted to him about what he felt like was a positive, like, oh, okay, this makes sense. You know, McColl's a speed guy. We don't have anybody else on the team that runs a 4.340 other than Bo Melton. Well, maybe he could stretch the field and he gives us a punt return guy. And people are negative about that. It's just mind-boggling, man. And telling you how I handle that, life is too damn short. The Cooper DeJean stuff last year just about broke me. It was just like, you cannot sit here and complain about not drafting Cooper DeJean in the second round when he drafted Edgerrin Cooper. Like, you can't have every great prospect on the board. You just can't do it. Yeah. And teams look at things different from, in that regard. So that's the stuff that if all you're going to do is part on the negative, I don't want to live life like that, man. And I think it's cool to see Ryan. Like, it seems like Ryan's on that team now as well, of look, all right, yeah, this has just gotten ridiculous. People are just wanting to be miserable. And I love what he said, and we'll move on, Jacob. I didn't even plan on talking about this, but I'm glad you brought it up. There was something else he said, too, is it's like people are jockeying. They're putting themselves in position that as soon as something goes good, they want to just completely deflate that. Why? Because it makes them look like an idiot because they were wrong in their original assumption. So they lean more toward, I want to be right, as opposed to, hey, let's be positive and maybe this is good for the team. It's just amazing how people are misled to think that. Think of everybody that you know in your life. I guarantee you the people that you enjoy hanging around the most, the people you like the most, are the ones that don't take themselves so serious. Nobody wants to hang around that. I told you it was going to happen. Called it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What you want? You want a damn cookie? Like, cool. Like, nobody's looking at like, oh man, I'm so glad I'm friends with him. He lets me know every time he's right. It's weird, right? So anyway.
Yeah, one last comment about this topic from Redmo46, then we can move on here. It says if Gutey would just start nailing first-round picks, he'd automatically be a top 5 or top 3, in my opinion. But he goes on to say, but he nails the underrated moves, though, which are equally important. And I think that's one thing where I believe it was Too Old for This Again says, like, how many other GMs have had the tenure of Goot and probably will have at least another year, 2 or 3, because he is so good at what he does, especially in the later rounds. The second, it's just basically not the first. That's like this big glaring kind of, that's the catchy headline. That's the tag that everybody wants to say, oh, you can't pick in the first round. But it's like, if that's, it's clickbait. To me, it's just clickbait. And there's validity to it for sure, that he's had guys that maybe didn't work out the way he wished, but I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
There you go. Zakias Earls in the chat says, I wanted cornerback in the first round, but now I'm not sure. Will Johnson is having injury issues right now. Siobhan Ravel is coming off of an ACL, and Benjamin Morrison's coming off a season-ending injury as well. I think his was a hip there out of Notre Dame. I'm with you, Zakias. That's why it's important, like, how does the board fall? Like, it's going to be hard to pass up on Will Johnson if indeed he is on the board when we pick at 23. Because Will Johnson is so high on the board, he's 12th on the board, right? But what you got to take into consideration is, like, we Jacob, when we broke down that injury history, the thing that sticks out to me was it was multiple types of injuries. It was 4 or 5 different types of injuries with Will Johnson. Yeah. And it's like, you get players like that, and it just seems like something's always wrong. It's not an indictment on them. It's not to try to bash them. They want to be on the football field. We know that. It could be bad luck, but if you have that information in front of you, and there's 2 different prospects, let's say Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas, is sitting there, and Will Johnson's sitting there. When you look at Kelvin Banks on the draft board, he has no red across the board. To the best of my knowledge, he hasn't had any major injuries. Now, maybe he has, and we haven't uncovered it yet. But that's just a vanilla example of, I'm probably going to go with Kelvin Banks there over Will Johnson, And now if you flip the script and talk about, okay, this is a wide receiver here instead, and he's got the injury issues, but we need a wide receiver, Never draft by need. You set your board up and you build your scouting database. And what I mean by this is you allocate your scouting hours, your man hours, to uncovering who are the prospects that you are most interested in. You set that by need. But when the board's built, you stick to the board, and that's how you end up with Aaron Rodgers when everybody else said, why did they do that? And you end up with Jordan Love when they said, why did they do that? Imagine if we had not drafted Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers isn't on the team right now. Who's our quarterback? Is it Kenny Pickett? Did we draft Kenny Pickett instead, a couple years later? Like who, you know what I'm saying? Like it sucks to hear people kind of Monday morning quarterback in that regard. Like it's easy to look back and go, yeah, we should have taken him. Yeah, these are the best though. I told you we should have took him.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the other 18 that you said they should take too? We're just not going to mention them. We're just going to mention the one that they missed on, right? It's just weird. It's a weird way to fan for sure. But yeah, I'm on board with you there, Zacchaeus. It's all about just making the smart pick, man, for sure. Smart picks in that regard. Redmo, did we hit this one yet, Jacob? No, we didn't. A lot of people genuinely believe just because you take a wide receiver in the first, that means they'll be ready right away. More likely, maybe, but a rookie is a rookie. See, that's the other thing to take into consideration. You draft a rookie, if you draft a first-round pick, you want them to start. You want them to get playing time, right? So maybe that's why Gutey stays away from wide receiver, knowing that within Matt LaFleur's offense, you got to know the choice routes. This isn't just, learn every route on the tree. Don't get me wrong. There's wide receivers in the first round that can't run every route on the tree, at least not refined, right? But you've got to be able to pick up the offense. And if they can't pick up the offense quick enough, guess what happens? Your first round pick sitting on the bench because he doesn't know the offense. Boy, that's real helpful, right? So I understand what you're saying there too, Redmo, that the stars have got to kind of align in that regard.
Well,
right?
And I think that's much more of a recent trend in the NFL. Like until you had your Justin Jeffersons, your Jamar Chase, those types of players that really did come in and absolutely reset what it meant to be a rookie starting wide receiver that can just absolutely show out. I mean, it's not common. It's not common at all.
Right. It really isn't. Coach Lynn says White and Quay may be hits also. Straight from Gutey's mouth, and the statistics would suggest it as well. Devontae White is your best pass rush and defensive tackle. What do they prioritize in Green Bay? Pass rush, right? That's always been the way they've drafted. If there's two players on the board and one is a run stopper and one's a pass rusher, they're going with the pass rusher, hands down, no questions asked. So yeah, they could both still be hits. I'm losing faith in Quay. I'm excited to see him this year. Because you're going to get a motivated Quay Walker, man. You're going to get a healthier Quay Walker, I hope. And then on top of that, he's playing for a contract. And you're going to get the best version of that player in that regard. And Quay does not come across like the player that's kind of sitting back going, man, I hope it works out for me. He knows his football career is on the line. He's going to come out, ready to fight for that spot, no doubt. Coach Lynn also says we may have nailed the Morgan pick. We have to let things play out. That's the other thing is people that are saying that, Morgan was a bust. How do you know he's a bust? He got a shoulder injury in camp, tried to fight through it all year, was splitting starter reps at right guard as a rookie in the back half of the first round. And now all of a sudden, the shoulder injury reemerges because he never truly let it heal. So now he's on IR. What makes you think he's a bust seeing that he was getting split starter reps at right guard? You know what I mean? So that's another one. So I see a lot of stuff in the comment that we're going to cover tonight, so we'll just go ahead and jump into it. I want to get these Patreon questions real quick, Jacob, if that's all right with you. Want to get caught up. Some of them are just comments, not necessarily questions. But Trevor Anderson in the Patreon group, you guys can join that Patreon group, scan the QR code in the upper right. Talking about McMillan not being fast, I will never care about 40 time again after Devontae. He ran a 4.56, a route running trumps 40-yard dash speed every time. If you had to make me choose between someone who's fast that can't run routes or someone that runs routes and has mediocre speed, I'm going with the guy who can run routes because it's such a close game in the NFL that you got to be able to play in that phone booth, especially if you're playing like a boundary X and you run a lot of trips and tray. You want to put them in that phone book with that cornerback. Chances are the quarterback won't have time to take a shot to a speed guy over there if they're playing a lot of split safety, which many teams in the league are right now. You got to be able to win in that phone booth, and that's why when LaFleur came here, he kind of stepped back and said, you know what? Let's play this ISO game. Let's play a little RPO game with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And boy, did it work, So I think that's a great point there. Trevor Greg S in the Patreon group says, I'm interested to see how AI is used for player projections. One of the NBA GMs said they are already collecting data to see how accurate AI with player projections, and will likely start using AI as an additional scout. I think it's a really cool tool. You just got to know how to use it. It's a big thing, Jacob. You can't listen. It won't fold your underwear for you. You know what I mean? You got to know what to put into the system.
I'm out.
You got to know what to put in the system, how to ask the question. I was showing a business partner of mine today. He's got kind of a mechanical background, loves working on cars. He's just an old car junkie, and he's all get off my lawn, anti-AI. I said, give me a problem you would experience on a vehicle, and he tried to make it as vague as possible because he knew what I was about to do. And finally, he said, a ground fault issue. Bro, I popped in ground fault issue into the robot, tweaked a couple words, and we had an 8-step process on how to troubleshoot every single electric component within a vehicle. And he was like, yeah, that's pretty impressive. It's literally, if you know how to use it, it is really, really
Dude,
cool.
Just real quick to that point. My little brother, he lost a dog way too early in its life, and he was really grief-stricken about it, and like to the point where it was consuming him. And he's like, I want to write a book. I want to write a children's book to kind of dedicate it to Maisie was her name. And he has never, my brother is not an author. He's not an English major. He's nothing. He had AI help him find a publicist, how to create the book, how to make, I'm talking the whole 9 yards. He got it. The AI helped him get it signed by Amazon and create a contract deal to sell through Amazon. He did it in like 2 weeks. And right. Like I said, and it was unbelievable seeing the final product. I wish I could show you. It was like perfect. It looks so professional. It's insane.
Yeah. And what you're seeing with some of the content we're creating over at Patreon, and I've gotten great feedback. The DMs are open. People message me in the DMs in there. They're loving the content. It's essentially, and we're going to launch the website and everything, but the Patreon website works exactly the same way. And what I'm doing is very carefully combing through information, using AI, and putting together a detailed scouting report of these players. And so when the Packers have somebody on their radar, bang, here's a full scouting report on them, injury history, everything you need to know right there. So over on the Patreon group, we'll show you here in a second how the landing page works. You're going to have articles pretty much on a daily basis that are geared around the Packers. Like when McCole Hardman was signed yesterday, I used AI to comb through and get the most important information about McCole, got it in 5 seconds, put it in format, threw it up on the Patreon group, and you guys have all the information you need on McCole to see what kind of player he is, schematically, deployment, all those things. It's a really cool tool. Moist Butter says, I like the Hardman pickup. What's your take? I think we've kind of covered it. Butter. I'm gonna call you Butter. I don't like a Moist Butter. I can't do it, Jake. You know what I mean? But I think it's a good pickup. I think your team got better by adding him. It didn't get worse. There's no doubt about that. And if Keyshawn's not going to return punts, I didn't like Jaden Reed at punt return. How did you feel about it, Jacob?
I don't like him doing anything special teams wise for a number of reasons. One, I just don't think that he didn't seem comfortable back there. I don't want to risk the injury, and I don't want him feeling like he has to be locked in that position to be a progress stopper of somebody else that could actually really excel.
Right. So now what you can do, if he makes the roster, you got a guy that you could throw a package or two out there where he can stretch the defense, but also he's now returning punch. Jaden Reed don't have to do that. And if I remember correctly, Jaden Reed hurt his ankle on a punt return. I think so. And he wasn't, when I say he wasn't the same the rest of the year, he got less targets. And I guarantee you that was Matt's like, we need you out there, but let's don't overuse him. Hopefully he can get healed up by the time we get to the playoffs. So I like the pickup personally, especially for what we're anticipating. The price is probably going to be less than $3 million, I would imagine. Anything less than $3 million, no worries with it at all. It'll probably be closer to his last contract with the Chiefs, though, which was less than $2 million. So Randy Cleavers in the Patreon group said, Loveland, you think they will get him if he falls in the draft? We have a pretty good tight end room already. And thank you guys for the Patreon questions. Appreciate it. I'm going to pull up the board here and show you where we got Colston Loveland at. And actually, I won't pull up the board because we've got a scouting report on him on Patreon. We won't spend as much time as we did last night on this, but I'll see if I can pull this up real quick. How would you feel about Colston Loveland to the Packers at 23, Jacob, if he was there?
I wouldn't hate the outcome. I would not agree with the place in which he was selected, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. We just got over talking about how we don't draft on needs, but who's the best player available. I just feel like that at 23, there's got to be multiple players that would help our team immediately with what we need from them that are better players overall than Colston, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And again, Colston Loveland on our draft board, he is sitting in the 15 spot. So when I say I would be perfectly fine with it, and by the way, shout out to Emilio. He's got the captain emojis in here. We're starting that now. I went through and double checked the top 20, so we're going to do it in the increments of 20 here and get that down. So Colston Loveland was a team captain at Michigan. He's also already been met with by the Packers, not a top 30 visit, but just, they met, I believe it might've been at the combine where they met with him. So he's on their radar, right? It says Colston Loveland, a tight end from Michigan, is widely regarded as one of the top prospects at his position in the 2025 NFL draft. Below is a detailed scouting report based on college performance, physical attributes, blah, 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 blah. So he's 6'5", right? 245. So you're talking about everything you want in size in a tight end. He was a junior, declared for the draft after 3 seasons, foregoing his final year of eligibility. He's from Idaho, so he's one of them corn-fed boys out there in the Midwest, right? It says Loveland emerged as a key contributor for Michigan, particularly in the 2023 national championship season, and solidified his status as a high-end prospect with consistent production despite playing in a run-heavy offense with inconsistent quarterback play. So you can go through on our Patreon group and read this entire breakdown here, like talks about strengths, athleticism, movement skills. He's a plus-level athlete for his size, blending explosiveness, agility, and fluidity. Receiving prowess. It says a natural pass catcher. Loveland boasts an outstanding catch radius, soft hands, and the ability to adjust to poorly thrown balls. He reduced his drop rate significantly from 2023 at 10% to 2024 at 3.4%. Anything under 5 is pretty solid. So I won't read the entire thing. You guys go check it out. This is another way that you can attack not having that top receiver, Jake.
Well, I was just going to ask, is there any situation where if he is sitting there, all of a sudden, I think I saw a coach, it was in the chat, said, does this mean we're going to run like a ton of 12 personnel? I'd wonder, is there a way that we mix in more 12 than normal, especially with the resurgence or emergence of Josh Jacobs, just hopefully being a battering ram, maybe trying to take a little pressure off of that offensive line that's so young and see if we can become more of like just more of like a battering ram, almost like a Philly or offense. And then is there a way that we take Colston Loveland and maybe even if we're in 11 personnel, that he's like that crazy big slot or maybe a different, just weird type of weapon that people aren't used to seeing anymore. And then maybe we could even get in more 13 personnel. You know what I'm saying? Like, does he give you the ability to maybe be, whereas originally I thought, man, that's going to limit our offense. Could it actually open it up more than we think?
Yeah, it could. And, many people don't know that the Chiefs, when they won the Super Bowl the year before last, I think they led the league in 13 personnel. You think of the Chiefs, you think they're spreading this thing out way wide, right? Like they're going to 3-4 wide receivers. No, they had 3 tight ends on the field more than anybody, if I remember correctly. So big 11. Yes, Jacob, it says Fred McFarley. It's spot on. That's what we used to call slot bully, right? You put a big bully out there in the slot and watch that nickel go, how the hell am I going to get to the run? So, yeah, Jake Shavink, this is the way. It's just to me, it's not like the only option. If Tet McMillan falls, you can have the conversation. All right, let's take him at 23, or do we pass? But if there's no top receivers there at 23, and you look up and the best player on the board is a tight end in Colston Loveland, yeah, you can shift to 12. There's no doubt about it, because whether you're in 11 or 12 or, I don't want to say 21, it is quite a bit different. Whichever one of those personnel you're in, you understand we're still using the same concepts. It's the illusion of complexity with simplicity at the base. You're still running dagger. Like last year, you're still running wolf. You're still running dog. You're still running those same concepts, slot cross. You're just doing it out of a different personnel. And you may start off in a dub set, right? Like a 12 2x2, and then bring the U over. And now you're in a 3x1, and bang, we're off and running where we can run that concept where we like, where it's really slot cross and dagger on the same side of the field out of a trips or a trace. So there's a multitude of things you can do. And I think that's where Matt LaFleur is really, really underrated in that regard. He doesn't get enough praise. That man can scheme open some wide receivers, boys. There's no two ways about that. So, and here you see his weakness, Loveland's weakness is biggest limitation is inconsistent blocking ability. While he gives effort and has decent functional strength, he lacks the mass and play strength to anchor against bigger defenders in line. He struggles to sustain blocks in the run game and can get pushed back by power rushers and pass protection. I don't want him pass protected. See, like that part right there, doesn't make a hill of beans to me. Because if you go max protect on a specific play, it means you've seen something in the secondary and we're going 99, take a shot, baby. And that doesn't mean the tight end needs to sit there and hold for 3 seconds. That's probably a little play fake, back foot hits, turn that thing loose, Jordan. So, again, there's Colston Loveland, a little breakdown on him over at our Patreon group. So, appreciate everybody that's joined over there. Now, we had some pretty big news today, Jacob, that hit. As we seen, it was tweeted out. Actually, that's the wrong one. I want to put the tweet up first for you guys because it's a really cool picture that our boy shared here. So we got this that came across Twitter earlier today. Texas A&M edge defender Shemar Stewart is visiting with the Packers today. He currently sits in the 13th spot on our PTA big board. Here was his Instagram post, right? He just said Lambeau Field. So this means, to the best of my knowledge, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you've heard something different, this should be a top 30 visit already in-house. And there's several of them going on across the league right now. There's some that probably have happened that we haven't heard about yet too. But the fact that they had him in there, obviously this was him at the Senior Bowl, just absolutely dominating. He got the full bonus at the Senior Bowl, man. So that's another 5-point bonus. When you look at our draft board, for those of you in the Patreon group who have access to it, what you'll notice is you'll get a couple of different bonuses. You'll get an RAS bonus that'll show a -5 or a -6. You'll get your Senior Bowl and East West Shrine Bowl that will get you another bonus. So when you look at our draft board, if you see a -5, another -5, that should really stick out to you because there's only going to be a handful of players. I'm talking about maybe 10 to 20 players on our entire board that we've got over 400 prospects on right now that'll pop with those two bonuses, and you'll go, okay, they've separated themselves a little bit. It doesn't mean they climb way up our board. I'd rather the board just stay true, but it's just an indicator that, yep, that dude has shown something special. So, again, he was at Lambeau Field earlier today for a top 30 visit, and we did just a little write-up on him here on Patreon, just to give you guys a little snippet. 6'6", 280 to 290 pounds, official measurements pending confirmation at the NFL Combine or Pro Day. You guys probably already have access to all of that. He's from Florida, 5-star recruit out of Monsignor Pace High School. Stewart was a top 10 national prospect in the 2022 class. His dominance in Florida's 4A division, 48 tackles, 15 sacks as a sophomore. And Under Armour All-American status highlighted his career, his elite potential. So you can go check out all of his college production and everything. Jacob, what do you think about Shemar Stewart? Because early on, he was lower on my board, right? And the reason he's raised up is because here's why he was low on the board to start with. PFF grades in 2022, he was 855th at his position. In 2023, he jumped to 333rd. In 24, he jumped to 95th. That's still not like a great grade. What is his grade in 24, Jake?
79.5.
So not horrible, but you'd like to see someone who could potentially be borderline top 10 pick be in the 90s. But again, yeah. PFF isn't everything. However, their big board at the end of the college football season had him 19th on the big board, right?
Yeah.
The consensus big board had him 25th. He did get the Senior Bowl bonus as well, the 5-point bonus there. So he dominated the Senior Bowl. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the 27th spot. He actually mocked him to us in one of his mock drafts, I believe. 33rd team had him in 16th, and Dane Brugler had him 9th. And he also scored, to the best of my knowledge. Did he finish with a 10 RAS? I think he did. I'll get your take on him real quick, and I'll look that up just to confirm. But I'm almost positive that he finished with a 10 RAS.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I just don't feel confident in Shemar Stewart. To me, he screams, unfortunately, a current trend with Gutey first-round picks. We draft on size, speed, RAS. But when you look at, he doesn't have that much production, man. He has played consistently as far as games and snaps and all that. He's got 6 sacks in his whole college career from 2022 to 2024. He has only 12 hits. Now, granted, he's got a lot of hurries this last year, but before that last year, not a lot at all. And his pass rush win rate isn't terrible with a 12.4%, but his run defense grade is really where he shined. It was an 88.2. Pass rush grade was only a 67.2. And to me, that production is more scary to spend a first-round draft pick on him again And I would rather see somebody that's actually shown that he can actually be a crazy disruptor and not just a big body that can run fast.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's a valid point. It's a valid point that the production wasn't there, and that's the PFF grades kind of hold true with that too, right? So yeah, I can understand being hesitant on it. Again, I just explained why our board has him so big. So if you put more stock in PFF grades and production than maybe what a Dane Brugler or Daniel Jeremiah believes, then you probably go in a different direction. But here's the other thing. Like Ron Sample says, yeah, I think it might be wishful thinking. Yeah, that's okay. Another project. You know, I don't like the projects either. I was born in a project. I actually was, but it wasn't projects.
Different, yeah.
Yeah, different projects there. What I want is those players that are kind of ready to go. You know what I'm saying? I don't want those guys. Oh, it's another ball of clay. That's why I was down on Shemar Stewart early, and it's why if they draft him at 23, it would be more than worth it according to our board. However, that is in the back of my mind, like this kind of feels like another LVM project, and we probably need someone more like hey, let's just go out there and kick ass day one. Drew D says, I agree, Jacob. Oh, sorry. But I do think it's easier to take the risk in the 20s than the top 15. Yeah, 13 for a risk. I'm with you there, Drew, kind of like what we did with LVN. And again, the board lined up for that one. I wasn't surprised by the LVN pick. The board said, yep, this is a good pick. And I hope he dominates this year, man. I hope he comes out and just turns it on. That would be absolutely awesome. So
yeah. The other quick comment I want to highlight, and then we can move on to whatever you want. Coach Len says, who is Stewart paired with up at A&M in the first round? I want to pay for the upside. Now, that is a great point because, again, if they were stacked along that D-line, which I think in certain ways they were. So if you look at Shemar Stewart right now, currently he's sitting at 26 on the PFF big board. Just the next edge listed is number 32, Nick Scourton from Texas A&M. He's younger by almost a full year. He's a little shorter, just 5 pounds heavier. Or I'm sorry, lighter, but his grades are a 62.3, an 82.8, and this last year was an 80.1. A little more production, not a ton more production, but quite a bit considering what our other guys' numbers were there, what Shemar's numbers were. So I believe that they also had a pretty decent interior guy that was helping them out. So that to me even scares me a little more about putting so much confidence into a guy like him. I feel like there's other things that you could focus on.
Yeah. And again, I'm all about the board, man. You know, if the best player on the board is an edge defender, take him. I'm good with it. If it's a tackle, take him. I'm good with it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it there. So that's a great question though, Coach Landon. Thanks you for looking that up, Jacob, because anytime you got two great pass rushers, right? We were much higher. I don't say much higher. We were higher on Byron Murphy than we were Devondre Sweat, I believe. I don't want to misspeak here. We're looking forward here from last year. We had Byron Murphy as the best lineman, then Jerzon Newton, then Devondre Sweat. And Devondre Sweat, according to PFF, had the much better year than Byron Murphy. So those two guys, the reason I mentioned them is they both played at Texas, right? Yeah, so they were teammates in Texas. So that's a perfect example of is one garnering a bunch of attention and making the other look better than he actually is.
Yeah, so there's also Shemar Turner, their defensive tackle, so that's 3 different people on the Texas A&M defensive line in the PFF's top 50. So that's worth thinking.
Yep. So you got to be aware of that stuff. There's no doubt about it, man. You got to stay in the loop on it. I want to hit something before we move on to some more draft talk. I seen you pop this in. This is really cool. If everybody could confirm, I don't want to call Badger Trio a liar. This sounds too good to be true, man. Is this legit? Because if it is, boy, I just got really excited. It says, so we got updated news on the draft on local TV tonight. Mark Murphy confirmed Lambeau will be open so people can sit in the bowl to watch the draft, and the NFL is hoping for snow for TV factor. We need to do a quick check on that. Somebody in the chat, give me double confirmation. I trust you, Badger Trio. It sounds too good to be true. It really does. You heard anything on it, Jacob?
No, the reason I highlighted it is just so for that very reason. And specifically because I trust Badger Trio pretty much. And he said he heard it on local news, which is, again, more of that to me would make it seem a little more justified. But that would be really cool, man. That would be great.
Yeah, let me just do a quick search here. Lambeau Field Draft Bowl. Let's see what happens here. It's a great podcast in here. Nothing there. I'm not seeing anything on X, man. Unless it just recently happened, right? Could have recently happened. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, maybe file that away in the wishful thinking, but needs to get some confirmation here.
Yeah. Coach Lim, why would they not? See, that's what I said, Coach.
Yeah.
Like, y'all want to hear how big of a geek I am? I sent an email to Mark Murphy going, bro, open the bowl up. Like, what are we doing? This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Open it up. And in that email, I said, also, I don't know if there's any NFL rules. We talked about this before. Why would you not open the bowl up for Packer fans to watch away games on the TV?
You could make so much money.
Yeah. So he probably said, this, I can tell by the way this guy types, he's a redneck, and threw the email away, right? That's the way it works. So anyway, let us know if anybody hears anything else on that. And it could have, like I said, it could have just dropped tonight. But there was some other news that hit. Man, this sucks. It sucks bad. But it wasn't like it caught everybody off guard other than us. Obviously, the information was shared, I'm guessing, at the Combine. And you keep an eye on the chat for me, Jacob, on that regard with the bowl there at Lambeau. So you guys know the top linebacker whose name isn't Jalen Carter on our board. I'm not as high on Jalen Carter. He's pretty far down our list. But Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell reveals he had shoulder surgery that could affect his draft position. And so linebacker Jahad Campbell from Alabama revealed to the SEC network that he had surgery for a torn labrum in his left shoulder following the NFL scouting combine. Now, listen, injuries can take longer than others. It might be more serious, less serious, but this is just kind of a very vague description of this injury. The expected recovery time for such an injury can vary depending on the severity of the tear and individual factors in rehabilitation. For football players, a torn labrum typically requires 6 to 8 months of recovery before returning to full activity. This timeline suggests that Campbell could be sidelined until approximately September to November of 2025, assuming his surgery occurred around early March 2025. However, this is a general estimate, and his actual return would depend on his progress in rehab and medical clearance. He clearly sits as the 22nd prospect on our PTA big board and the top linebacker in this year's draft, but will most likely fall due to missing time for rehab this coming season. Jake Shavink, I seen in the chat earlier, he may have already dipped. If you didn't dip, Jake, anybody else who got information on this, does it sound like it's going to be a quick recovery, or do we think he's going to be out for a while? Because this is the best information I could find earlier. Jacob, what's your take on it, man? It sucks because Jahad Campbell is one of those guys I'd be like, he's on the board and it makes sense. Pull the trigger.
Yeah. Gosh, if this causes him to fall past a point where Gutey and them did not expect him to even be close to available, I wouldn't mind it, but I just know that can you imagine the headlines if all of a sudden we take another linebacker in the first round who's hurt, who couldn't even start playing until maybe possibly week 4 through 8? I just feel like Gutey's like, I'm not doing, are you guys insane? Like, or unless we did some sort of trade back scenario and he still falls. I mean, there's Shavink.
Yeah. Shavink says, I don't imagine he plays until like November, December, if at all. See, that was when I seen the time frame, I was thinking they probably just listen, it's totally different injuries, but I immediately thought of Jalen Smith, the Cowboys drafted in the second round. He was dealing with that horrible knee injury, ended up having drop foot, I think it was, like nerve damage and stuff. They took a chance in the second, but he had to sit out the first year. The next year, he came out and played, and obviously he was nothing near the player he was in college or high school. He was the top linebacker in the country, if I remember correctly, when Notre Dame signed him, or he enrolled at Notre Dame. So it kind of feels like one of those, and I'm with you, Jacob. I think the fans will burn the house down if they draft somebody like that. So
it kind of reminds me what happened with poor Jonathan Brooks. Poor guy came in the league, wasn't fully healed, ends up tearing an ACL again. I mean, red shirt in basically 2 years. I just don't feel like that is a smart move for us in the first.
I'm seeing the comments in the chat that it's snowing in Green Bay, so let's just go ahead and fix that for y'all. There we go. We got snow in Green Bay now. All right, we're good to go. So, yeah, anything else on Jahad Campbell here, man, before we move on? I thought that was interesting.
No, and it's kind of weird because I liked him less when I first started to get to know him, and then I kind of started getting really excited about the prospect and what that could mean about solidifying that linebacker room. And now I've kind of completely fallen off of that again. And just because of the injury as well, but also that progression, he hasn't graded out the best throughout college. Definitely not terrible, but I just feel like it's less and less of a fit as we get closer to the draft.
Yeah, I agree. And just to bounce back a touch here on the Shemar Stewart conversation, here is why some people were going, man, if the production was that bad, why are they falling in love with him?